Good morning, campers. Welcome to Radio Camp Half-Blood, a Percy Jackson read-along podcast. I am your host, Zach.
And I'm B.
And this week we read some more Leo chapters, so things are starting to heat up. B, are you ready?
No
Are
pun
you ready
intended.
for the name of this chapter?
I am ready.
Leo gets roasted.
Yeah. So this is a pretty creepy, I wouldn't necessarily call it a flashback chapter, but it might as well be because it's just sort of him remembering the past and piecing everything together.
It's almost like the universe almost like hates us a little bit because we were criticizing last episode. What if we got like a straightforward like flashback chapter? Bam, this is almost like a straightforward flashback chapter.
It is. Well, it's not quite though, because it frames it within the present of him sitting there remembering it, but it's not like it starts like a cold open where it doesn't explain that we're in a flashback. So it's not quite a flashback, but it's not a dream either, which doesn't normally happen, I think, in Rick Riordan books. Like we said, it's like usually either a dream or a vision or something, but he's just sort of like ruminating on his past and piecing it together with his future.
Which is something that Leo does a lot in like the chapters that we've read, where like he's supposed to be really jokey, but when you get into his POV, he's like the polar opposite, where like he's like thinking about it, and he's like really not. He's almost. I keep calling him like Nico in the sense of like he dwells on a lot of things that are very like emo-ness.
He's emo. I know you called him Nico before we recorded, and I was like, no, wrong emo one. He's not really. He's funnier than Nico, I would say.
Oh yeah, but anyone can be funnier than 1930s Nico humor.
Yeah.
Hey kids, you guys want to get an eggnog?
An eggnog?
Or an egg malt? I don't know. What do 1930s wisecracking New Yorkers drink? Egg malt?
Seltzer? I don't know, probably.
Okay, baby hands.
Yeah, that's my 1930s gangster name. This is what we've determined, by the way.
But yeah, like I really enjoy like Leo in this way because like again, I like wisecracking characters, but at the same time, I like when we have a character that's very I don't want to say the word two-faced, but like he perceives himself one way, but then he's like internal in the sense of like he'll crack jokes, but that's just his defense system. Whereas here, like he feels like he's the cause of everything, and that's one of the reasons why he like runs away a lot. And for me, that makes what's such an interesting character about Leo is that reason is he's very complicated.
I think what's interesting about these three characters is that all of them kind of seem different on the surface than internally they're having like the struggle, where I think they all think they're the one who's like hiding a secret, but really all of them have a secret. It's kind of funny.
The second they all realize they all have problems, it's going to be like the Spider-Man meme where like they're all pointing at each other.
Where they're all pointing, exactly. It's like, oh, you were going to betray me? Well, I secretly could have my hands on fire. Oh, really? Well, I'm from ancient Rome. It's like they're all sort of pointing at each other with their weird sort of secret identities.
Yeah, and even like when it comes to this, like I love that when we get into these POV characters, they're not like, oh boy, gee willikers, everything's awesome. Whereas because they're teenagers, they all have like, I'm sure like most of them have like anxiety disorders. Like a lot of like, they're very anxious.
We've already talked about how basically every camper, every half-blood has to have some sort of trauma-related situation, because like that, it's just inherently traumatic to live the lives that they live.
Oh yeah, no, I'm surprised like Percy Jackson doesn't have imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, there's just like a lot going on, like prophecies. I mean, even in this chapter, I mean, we'll get into it, but like Leo talks all about how he, from a very young age, was strange and didn't really understand what was going on, and was told that he had this sort of destiny or this future that he didn't really understand. And even the way that his mom talked about his dad was like very cryptic, but she still talked about him like that one day they would meet, but like never really explained anything else about him.
I also like that there's like this weird thread as well. If we look at Percy, we look at Piper, we look at Jason most likely, and we look at Leo, is that we're getting more characters that they actually their parents have to explain to them why their parents left or the other parent left. And when it comes to like Percy Jackson, it's more of this cryptic thing, whereas you look at like Leo's backstory and it's more like his mom was more like angry about it, but also like they didn't want to hurt his son. And then we see Piper and her dad doesn't even know what to do about it because it's pretty much like he felt like she left him with just this baby. And that's like, for me, that's interesting storytelling.
Right, they react differently to being sort of like the left single mother of like this demigod. Like it's very different the way that they talk about the godly parent. I feel like Sally was never like, oh, one day you'll see your dad again. Like, she didn't really hold out hope for that.
I mean, it's like one of those things where you're just like, hey, hopefully he comes. Hey, why don't we go to the beach every summer just in case? Yeah.
Just in case he shows up. But yeah, exactly. She wasn't being as direct about maybe meeting Poseidon.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of that moment. Now, B, what is the summary of the first part of this?
So this is pretty straightforward. It's kind of like a flashback, not exactly, but it's just sort of Leo piecing everything together. So we had just found out the whole situation with Piper and what cabin she's in and where she becomes quote unquote beautiful. We don't have time to unpack all that. We did last chapter, actually. So he runs away because he's kind of piecing everything together that, bewaring the earth probably has to do with this like spooky woman made of dirt that he saw when his mom died. Which is, he kind of retells more of the details of the circumstances of his mom's death, where technically speaking, he thought that it was his fault, where he like set the machine shop on fire, but really he was defending her against this shadowy figure who's different than Tia Kalita, which, by the way, in this chapter, Leo pieces together the fact that she's Hera, which I don't know why I didn't piece that together. I thought maybe she was connected, but I didn't think it was just literally directly Hera. But I guess so.
When I had that eureka moment, I actually had a moment like, oh, wait, this makes more sense that she's technically like the aunt almost, or like kind of like in this paternal role because...
But again, she's not related to him. She's just this person.
Kinda, because remember,
Zeus and Hera cast away... Hephaestus because he was so ugly. Yeah, so...
They technically are related.
So I guess that would make Hera his grandma?
Oh no, Grandma, Mima, why would you do that?
Right? Technically his grandma in like a Greek lineage sense, not in like a literal sense, because he thought that she was just an older woman in the community, much like we've talked about. Tia doesn't necessarily mean like your literal blood related aunt. So that was his babysitter. He talks about all these like sort of weird suspicious things that happened throughout his childhood where she kind of seemed to be trying to kill him, put him in a fireplace in his bassinet, and he was just like, this is cozy, and didn't die for some reason in the fire.
I mean, to be fair, that's probably like the best sleep you'll ever get, because you're just gonna be so warm, you're gonna feel like a Cinnabon.
Yeah, I know. He was like, oh, this is really nice. Then she takes him to poke a rattlesnake, but then the rattlesnake is like, doesn't attack him for some reason. They have this weird standoff and then it slithers into the bushes. There are all these like mysterious circumstances where he's put into danger. And I mean, we could talk about this later, but I think on the surface, it seems like she's trying to kill him. But from the way that he describes how she talks about him, it's more like she's preparing him to be a hero, while his mom is like not ready for him to become that hero, doesn't want him to train or realize that he's a demigod just yet. Which, I mean, that's sort of the reference we make all the time with Halloween Town, where it's like trying to hide the fact that he's a demigod. But meanwhile, he's like catching it. Actually, do you know what he's like? He's like Jack from The Incredibles.
Wait, because
he's exactly
fire
like
baby.
That. Literally catching on fire. Yeah, no, he's literally a fire baby. So like that's basically this entire chapter is thinking back on Jack being a fire baby. That's it.
Unfortunately, wait, never mind. I was about to make I don't think any Pixar moms have ever died.
No.
Have they? No, wait.
I'm sure we've been proven wrong, but
Andy could be a
maybe?
demigod because he doesn't know who his father is.
That's true. We don't ever meet his dad, so who's to say?
Oh, wait, no, there has been a Pixar mom that's died. It was Nemo's mom.
Oh, Nemo's mom. Yes, you're right. Yeah, I forgot because it was a fish. It's a little confusing. I was like thinking of people. Then again, there aren't a lot of people in Pixar movies, to be honest. So when he wakes up, we got sort of a quick rundown of like how this pattern came to be, where then, he was moved into foster homes because nobody in his family wanted to take him in. He was called El Diablo. They thought he was like a demon baby, which, I mean, to be fair, he did produce fire with his little baby hands. So like, I kind of get the...
See, we're going back to baby hands here. Do you have any fire powers?
That would be very ironic considering who my dad was. But, that's just the kind of life that I lead. So we find out that whole backstory, or at least more details about that. But there is an important detail we learn, which is that when in the presence, he hears Kalita's voice telling him it wasn't his fault. So basically, I think she doesn't want him to feel guilty about that. And she's kind of not as evil as she seems, because she's like this spooky old lady who's putting him in danger, but she knew he'd survive. So she was kind of more like trying to train him. But that's the gist of this chapter.
One of like the highlights of this is that we're not used to this idea of gods pretty much interfering in like demigods' lives in this like very, very direct way. Like, yes, Poseidon
Right.
is supposed to do stuff indirectly. Like, they even talk about, like, we're not supposed to interfere with, demigods' affairs. Like, they talk about this constantly. That's why, like, Luke, when he, like, snapped, was because of this. Like, he felt like he wasn't being appreciated, but also he wasn't getting any help from his dad. But yet here we have Hera helping Leo in this way, like, preparing him, basically sealing his own fate, so to speak, in the sense of, like, the garage fire. And it's hard to, like, really describe, really, like, it's supposed to be a taboo, but it's not technically, like, Hera's not Leo's parent, so she can do whatever she wants, I guess.
I guess so. It's hard to know exactly what the parameters are of how much you're allowed to meddle in the affairs of mortals.
Killing parents, that's A-okay. Telling your son that you love them?
I guess
bad.
So.
Sorry about that, everybody.
Well, I mean, she doesn't kill the mom, though. It's this other being who's not Tia. He thinks it is at first.
Yeah, but it's still like an indirect thing. Like, she's still training him and stuff, and then when it happens, she still, like, interferes in many other ways in that regard, too. We look at Hera, and then we look at the juxtaposition of Jason now with Juno. It's like, is it supposed to be, like, because it's the maternal role? Is it because it's supposed to be, like, a maternal role, like they're trying to help her children, so to speak, any way they can? There's like, that weird duality.
Oh, right. I guess, yeah, then that would make them, like, kind of even more related than most demigods, because then if he's related to Hera because of Hephaestus, then it's very complicated, the lineage of Greek gods, right? Because then he's a kid of Zeus, Jason is, so it's like they're married, so what does that make Leo to Jason? I don't know, actually.
This is where you need, like, the conspiracy board and, like, the family tree.
Yeah, you need, like, to go on, like, Ancestry.com and figure this all out.
All you get is, like, when you get in the mail, you just get, like, a picture of a guy shrugging. Can't help you there.
Yeah, it's like, sorry, this is too complicated. As it is, it doesn't quite make sense why demigods can date demigods. Listen, we've talked about it. I still don't quite understand how that's possible, but whatever.
Because you wouldn't have relationships if that wasn't the case.
That's literally the only reason, because in my mind, it's still creepy, but you know what it
is what it is.
There's nothing else I can say.
One of the other things, B, that I really liked about kind of like the pseudo flashback sequence, which I think hopefully Rick Riordan adopts more. I'm guessing this is more of a Leo thing because he gets it the most.
Right.
Is that it's almost like the weird type of thing when it comes to, like, Percy Jackson, where it's almost third person, like, also, like, almost like, this is what I did, but also you still get into his mind where he's, like, almost evaluating his flashback a little bit. And I love that kind of style where it's a flashback, but Leo's kind of commenting on it, and I really like that.
Yeah, because it's not a actual flashback or an actual dream sequence. It's just more like him thinking. We get his, like, running commentary of him, like, connecting the dots of the past and the present. Like, okay, she must be Hera, so what does this mean? The prophecy says something about fearing the earth, and I saw this woman who seemed to be made out of dirt, and then I blacked out, and that's when my mom died. This all has to be related. Her, like, little monologue that she does to him has something to do with the fact that one day she'll try and, like, defeat her, but it's, like, not gonna happen yet. And he's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even know who I am, or I'm not trying to fight anybody. It's very complicated.
It's also heartbreaking when you see, like, when you get to the flashback sequences of him running away from, like, foster homes, and even his own blood doesn't want him. That stuff's hard to read sometimes.
Yeah, that was pretty difficult. That sort of reminded me of, like, a lot of like, children's stories that involve, like, orphans, you know what I mean? Whether it be Unfortunate Events or James and the Giant Peach, just, like, you have, like, weird extended relatives who, like, don't want to take you in, you have nowhere to go, and you're, like, this roving child.
Yeah, you either have, like, the world's best relatives, or you have the absolute worst people imaginable taking care of you, and you're like, what?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it probably would have been worse if he was taken in by family, because I don't think they would have been so thrilled to have him around.
Maybe, because I feel like they'd be doing, like, a lot of, like, exorcisms, and, like, a lot of holy water would probably be involved.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, they think he's the devil, which I guess is, like, what happens when Greek myth coincides with, like, a Christian kind of tradition in America, where people are like, okay, why can you produce flame with your hands?
You're a witch. We have to do a witch test, B.
Right, exactly. America has a long history of claiming people with extraordinary abilities should be killed. So
yep, look at all the X-Men.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, like, even, like, the witch test, like, if we're gonna get off the rails, like, B, you, like, live sort of near Salem, Massachusetts. Like,
I mean, no, I don't. I closer than you, I guess. But I mean, it's a couple hours away at least.
Yes, you live closer, but like all those like witch tests, like if you drown as a witch, well, if you float, you're a witch, but if you drown,
And if you
you're
drown,
dead.
you're dead.
Oh, you're not a witch.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry about that.
Salem is pretty cool to visit. The last time I visited Salem was the day that the 13th book of Unfortunate Events came out, and it was Friday the 13th in October. So it was like a pretty fun, spooky time.
You know, that's the great thing about Series of Unfortunate Events in that way, where they would always have these wacky, like, marketing campaigns. Even the first season, wasn't it also released on Friday the 13th?
Yeah, always coming out on Friday the 13th. Luckily, there's a couple Friday the 13th a year usually, at least one.
That'd be real awkward if it was like they did it Saturday the 14th.
I think they did something pretty similar to that for the last season because they didn't release it on Friday the 13th and everyone was surprised.
Well, that was also, they were just dumping it at that point. Like, no one's watching this. Just dump it.
Here you go, take it.
So, B, in your opinion, like when it comes to like Leo, what do you find interesting about like his, his conflicts? Because out of all of them, like Piper has a lot of like, dad problems, but now we have a character that's very, well, obviously what's going to probably happen is the real family isn't necessarily blood, but it's the friends that you can make your own bond.
Yeah, I mean, they're all kind of estranged in various ways to their family. And then obviously Jason doesn't know who he is. But Leo's interesting because it seems like he has a lot of complicated family things. And even like his Tia, who's like, again, not really his aunt, but whatever. But it's like, it's his Hera. Yeah, I guess it's Hera. But like, it's weird to like think of that as the same person. But yes, it's technically Hera. He just has like a lot of weird baggage from his childhood. Well, I feel like we haven't gotten the same kind of backstory from like someone like Piper. There's like not really this indication that like since she was a kid she knew she was a demigod, or that she was like
Special in this way.
traveling around. Yeah, especially because like she had one blood parent at least who was taking care of her, so it wasn't quite the same as like losing your mom at a young age and then being in foster care. And like I think that made Leo a very different person than her. He has a different type of self-sufficiency, I think, because of that. He's complicated because he is sort of the comedic relief, but he has an extremely tragic backstory.
Yeah, and also we have this thing normally when it comes to like YA with orphans, there's usually only like two type of archetypes. You either have like the person that's so like they will do super duper good because they don't want anyone to feel the way that they felt, or they're like little schnitz, if I'm gonna use the German expression, like they're the absolute worst people imaginable.
I mean, Leo's kind of in between in some ways because he's like, he kind of acts out and he doesn't really know how to interact with people or make friends or feel comfortable in one place. It even says that the only way that he feels calm is if he feels a sense that he's always running away from the tragic night that his mom died. So it's like, yeah, he very clearly has trauma. He has a hard time adjusting to a quote unquote regular life.
Well, I think one of the reasons why he runs away a lot is it's the only time that he feels like he's totally in control of his life because he's the one putting the one foot forward.
Right. Well, he also has, I think, a fear of himself because he blames himself for what happened with his mom. Like that was him losing control. So he always wants a sense of control of himself, of these abilities, even like later in, I guess it's in the next chapter where he first tries to like summon his fire powers again. He hadn't done that in years because he felt so guilty and so ashamed and afraid that he was going to lose control again and hurt somebody.
Yep, I can't wait for the part when he flames on like the Human Torch and like kicks a bunch of butt. Like, that's probably bound to happen.
Oh, I know that's coming. I can't wait. I can't wait until he reveals to everybody that his hands can catch on fire and everyone's like, oh my God. Look at him go.
B, what you're telling me is Leo's going to be like, catch his hands and like pretty much does like a fiery slap on a person? Oh, that'd be great.
Right. I love the description that people, when they like investigated the death of his mom, they were like, yeah, always wondered why the little hand of a toddler was burned into this picnic table.
Thinking about like people would just be like, that's just a kid messing around, but his hands are literal fire.
Yeah.
Maybe Leo should like make like a mixtape.
So anyway, the chapter does end with him making an interesting choice, which is that he needs to get a flying machine or something that can fly. So I guess through his own thought processes, he's like, all right, I guess I gotta find that dragon that's on the loose.
See, I know I've talked about this before, especially when it comes to Tyson, is that I always love characters when they think that actually this is more of Rick Riordan being the same philosophy as like ADHD and dyslexia. Like the thing that you think is like the worst thing imaginable about you is like one of your best qualities. Like he's so afraid to use the fire, but he's the only person that is totally capable to actually accomplish it.
Right,
Yeah.
he needs to use that fire. He needs to learn
Which
to
is not like a subtle
control it.
metaphor whatsoever. It's like being different or like feeling that you're out of place. But the thing that makes you different and makes you feel out of place is actually the thing pretty much exemplifies you.
Wow, maybe the thing that makes you different is the thing that makes you strong.
No way, B.
Wow, it's almost like that's like the theme of these books or something.
Oh my God, B. Maybe we might be onto something. Maybe we should start a podcast
Obvious
talking
motif.
about this.
Yeah. Maybe we should make a musical that has that as lyrics in the song.
Oh, so what is the summary of the next chapter, B?
So yeah, the last chapter basically ends with him saying, he's like considering like, oh well, I should probably give up this thing where I promised all these people that I would make this flying machine. I'm like, oh, maybe this is a bad idea, but he takes a deep breath and goes into the forest because he's off to find the dragon. So this is a weirdly quick chapter, I feel like, because especially the way that it's really hyped up by like the Hephaestus cabin where they're like, we can't catch this dragon. It's been a very difficult task and people keep getting set on fire and it never works. And it's like, it seemed like a bigger problem. And now we're, this isn't very late in the story, I feel like, especially for Leo. Like, they're still at camp. They haven't even started their quest or anything. And Leo's like, I have the confidence to randomly go into the woods and get this dragon. But he kind of does almost immediately. He, like, wanders into the woods. He finds the trap with a vat of motor oil and Tabasco, which is pretty funny, and a net made out of, I guess I could only be celestial bronze. And he, because he has a mechanical mind, figures out how it works, and he waits for the dragon to show up. And he is kind of like Chris Hemsworth in Jurassic World, where he has this like weird, or like even like Harry Potter speaking parcel tongue, where he can kind of like communicate with the dragon, and like the dragon doesn't kill him right away. He's like talking to it and it's like, oh well, you just need to have your control disc fixed. And he hops up there like it's no problem and like fixes his brain and gives him a name and everything. It happens pretty quickly.
B, I absolutely love this dumb trope of like the one person that can like communicate with the animal. This is like the 2 points you just brought up is literally the Horse Girl movie, where it's the wild horse, and only the girl can tame it.
Right. It's also the Horse Girl movie. It's the same idea of just like this sort of like, it's like, it's okay, boy. I love the line where it said, he'd never had a dog, but he talked to the dragon like he thought you were supposed to talk to a dog. So that's basically what Leo does. He like locks eyes with this dragon and then he's like, oh crap, you don't have wings. Well, we'll figure that out later.
Is it bad that when I'm thinking about this, the voice that Leo is using is the exact same voice as your boyfriend when he talks to ghosts? Talks to goats?
Talks to I was like, talks to ghosts. I was like, is my boyfriend in The Sixth Sense?
Maybe
what do you mean?
Ghost goats? Oh.
Yes, he would only talk to ghosts if they were like animals, probably. He would love that power.
But that's the exact voice. Like, you know what I'm talking about. It's like the most adorable thing ever.
Just like, no, okay, no, that's not true, because if that was the case, then Leo would be like, hello, baby, you're a baby. Look at that baby face. You're such a little baby. Like, I don't think he's doing that.
No, that's exactly what Leo sounds like in my head.
Yeah, he's like scratching his chin and giving him treats. He's like, are you a good boy? Do you want a tweet? Like, I don't know if he's doing that to the dragon, but he does befriend it and he cleans his control disc the best he could. And the dragon seems to be doing a little better. I did like how, briefly when Leo is explaining why the dragon is kind of freaking out, he's like, oh, well, this control disc is all corroded. No wonder you're confused. And it even explains in the text, he tried to avoid to say the word crazy. And I thought that was like really ahead of its time to avoid saying the word crazy, because that's even something right now that people are trying to do, where like that's like increasing the stigma of mental illness and to like not really use that word because it's kind of ableist, and it makes sort of mental illness into like a personality flaw instead of just like something that people can't control. And that was like honestly not something I expected from when this book was written, which was still like the mid 2000s, you know?
Yeah, but I noticed that when I was reading it, especially like when it comes to Leo, the way that he treats this robot, obviously it's a Dragon's Festus, it's called. But like he treats it like a person rather than like a machine, which is like normally when you get to these stories, you always have like, I always use the animal comparison, but when you have, I actually find it's more compelling when you have like inanimate objects that you can relate to rather than like an actual animal, because it adds more empathy. And not being able to call it, quote unquote crazy. It's like the reason why it's running amok isn't a fault of itself, but it's the fault of actually like this very, very basic thing. Or I guess not really basic.
Yeah, it's circuitry. It's not his fault. Exactly. And that he's like the first person to treat it that way, which, I mean, the metaphor is not lost on me, you know? It's like, that's why that kind of horse girl animal training trope exists. It's like, I'm the outcast, you're the outcast. We understand each other. We know that really people just don't understand that there's good in us. You know what I mean? It's like that same empathy going on.
This is why I cry at the end of The Iron Giant every time I watch it.
Oh god, yeah, it is like the Iron Giant, for sure. Yeah, a boy and his robot. Steven Spielberg is weeping somewhere in the other room. So basically, he befriends this dragon almost right away. Him not having wings is kind of not the best thing. Then briefly, Leo considers maybe making this flying machine, which he was dreaming about since he was a kid, and he even drew it. But that's not quite right either, because that would take too long. And then he hops on the back of Festus, which I guess is the name he gives this dragon who he befriended in 2 seconds in the woods. They yeet off into the woods even deeper, which again is kind of weird considering the fact that it's a camp and it doesn't seem like the woods should go that deep, but they like discover this secret bunker, basically. Yeah, they discover a cave that's marked Bunker 9, which, I mean, apparently is that related to Cabin 9? Then briefly Leo is like, does that mean there's 9 bunkers? We're not exactly sure, but very clearly the Hephaestus cabin was in here because it's, you know, it's like a machine shop. There's all these, you know, there's like a nuclear reactor and a bunch of different power tools and like but it's been abandoned for years, like since like 1864, it says.
1864? B, that seems really weird because that's during the Civil War. Oh no, Rick Riordan's going at it again.
That is during the Civil War. So it's super steampunk in there, basically. So he looks around and he even sees a blueprint of the ship with the dragon figurehead, which looks like Festus, and that's the ship that Leo drew as a child. So it's all coming together, folks. And he basically has Festus just like nudges with his nose like an adorable little pet friend that he made 5 seconds ago this tool belt and is indicating like, all right, I guess it's time for you to get going. And he gestures up above to something that we don't see. So that's basically what happens in the chapter. He's building some sort of flying mechanism involving Festus.
I love this. I love that when it comes to like Leo in that respect, he's really good at one thing, and that is both, I guess, cracking jokes, but also being able to fix things. And I see, I don't really want to use the trope of like, if something's broken, you can always improve upon it. But when it comes to like his relationship with Festus, what I really, really like about the relationship is that it's almost instantaneous. Like there isn't actually like a whole battle scene at all about this. There's pretty much like, that's what I enjoyed about this chapter.
Yeah, I kind of liked that. And we've talked about how a lot of times battle scenes aren't as interesting because it's just, you know, it's like fight choreography, and it can be interesting if you have some dialogue in there. But I really like how there is some sort of like physical maneuvering with him, like getting the Festus trapped in the trap, but then, you know, trying to calm him down and being like, I understand you, and then fixing his like wiring. I feel like that is so much more interesting than if he were to like fight the dragon or like break him up into pieces and then drag home his like the pieces of this dragon. You know what I mean? Like you don't want him to do that.
Well, I think one of the reasons why there isn't a fight scene here is actually it's a very basic reason, and that is like,
well, we need him first of all.
Well, you need him for one, but I think also because I'm about to use like a really weird analogy here. Be ready for this. Is that the way that I look at Festus is the exact same way I look at a chainsaw. A chainsaw is a very scary thing. Like, you know what happens when you mess up with it, but it's still a tool. It's still something that, like, if you know how to use it safely, you know how to use it properly, it doesn't hurt.
Didn't they even say he sounded like a chainsaw?
Yeah, well, see, this is, but I'm saying, like, what Rick Riordan's doing here is he's trying to explain that, like, everything that's built not necessarily is inherently evil. Like, you can use it for evil things, but used properly, it can be used for good, and you can make something beautiful with it. Like, have you ever seen chainsaw ice sculptures? Oh, I love those things.
Oh, I was gonna say, or you could carve a lovely log of wood into a bear, which is, there's a lot of that where I live, or even like a little bit north. A lot of like touristy places have carved logs that look like bears.
You know what the funny thing is about that is like where I used to live, the town a couple towns over was famous for their wooden bear carvings in New Mexico.
Yeah, it's kind of ubiquitous in America. It's a very American thing.
I think it's actually kind of cute, honestly. I think that's adorable. I remember like the first time like I had the lecture like in woodshop about that, like by using like the circular table saw, and how it's like, hey, look, this thing could like totally like chop off your fingers, but as long as you use it properly, pretty much I've been using this thing my entire life, and I still have my fingers. And I like that there's kind of like that philosophy
Yeah,
again. Like,
well, that makes sense, right? Because Leo is son of Hephaestus. He is like an expert at machining. They even describe him as a child being like better at engineering and math than all of the adults at his mom's machine shop, you know?
yeah, and that's what I love about when it comes to Leo is that he's such like an independent person. And we get to the flashback with Leo's mom, is that even she doesn't treat him like a little kid. She treats him like another person. Like even like the machine shop stuff. Like I love those interactions. Like I think Leo's mom is like a god tier mom in that respect, because she even talks about how she didn't have much help, and then she got up by her own bootstraps. Again, we've talked about this last chapter, like the rags to riches type of story. Like she was almost about to like make a drill, maybe that would actually make them super duper rich.
Right. Yeah. Like a drill bit that she could patent, and then that would be like their big break. It's really kind of heartbreaking because it even says like, she was very smart, and she, was like the only person in her family who got a degree in, I think, mechanical engineering. And she was very talented, but none of the people took her seriously. And like, let's be honest, it's probably both because she's a woman and the fact that she's Latina. So it's like this double-edged sword of like prejudice, even though that she's a very capable person. And that is kind of reflects how Leo lives his life too. He's a very capable, talented person, but he hasn't been able to fulfill his potential because he's seen by other people as a problem.
He's seen as more like a nuisance. I feel like one of the main criticisms of Leo throughout these series is that he's annoying, and like kid humor can be like hit or miss. But like when you have his chapters, like seeing this actually in a very slow pace that we're doing this. The first time that I read this book, so I'm like, Leo's okay, but I'm looking at it now as an adult and seeing that Leo is a person that's like tries to challenge pretty much every like status quo when it comes to like every stereotype. If this was a book written like 20 years ago, this would have been like Leo would always switch. They even kind of talk about it, like the weird thing about switching from Spanish to English in that regard, and like probably, I mean, there's like things about like hot sauce and stuff, but what I love about like when it comes to like Leo in this respect.
Oh right, yeah, the Aztec ancestors is something that you briefly hear Hera say,
yeah,
which is
and
kind of interesting.
You know what? There is I think a Rick Riordan Presents book that deals with Mexican culture. I think it's about not Aztec, it's about the Mayans. But again, we're talking about more expanding the world. We're expanding the world more. Like, are we going to see maybe like Aztec gods in this book series? Are we going to see more similarities between all the theologies and myths and legends?
Right, Aztec gods. Then of course we have Piper and talking about the connection between like indigenous gods and Greek gods. So it's like they're bleeding the mythologies here, where it's not just Greek. I mean Roman too. Like literally all three of these characters have connections to other mythologies other than Greek.
I think that's more compelling, actually, than the original Percy Jackson book, because everyone isn't just like
a stock white person who has like no connection to their culture. Like, yeah, they don't even say anything about Annabeth.
I guess like Percy Jackson is supposed to be tan, but he's still like whiter than sour cream at times.
Especially when this was written, I think they'd be pretty clear about what his like background would be, because they're very obviously pointing out that like Piper's Native American, and Leo is Latino. Do they even say where he's from? His family, I don't remember exactly.
Houston.
Oh,
from Houston.
No, but I'm saying
Texas.
I know they're from Houston, but I'm saying like what Latin American country their family is from. All you know is that he speaks Spanish at home. But regardless,
the Aztec Empire was huge, so I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah, it's somewhere in Central South America. Yeah, regardless, they don't specify exactly where Leo's from, but they kind of make a point to say that his ethnicity has affected him. Same thing with Piper, and we've already seen her face, I guess, anti-Indigenous racism, bigotry. You don't see that with Percy Jackson. You don't see that with Annabeth. And I think it adds an interesting dimension that like they have a culture beyond also being demigods. Like just because they're demigods doesn't mean they're quote unquote Greek or ancient Greek. They have other stuff going on. And that's more interesting and more complicated, because then you like think about all these other mythologies and other like mystical belief systems that kind of play into this concept of the Greek gods being real. Like, okay, there's something bigger going on here. Like probably everything is real, I guess.
Yeah, and also the way that I look at it as well is like the only real like white character that we have here currently is Jason. Like he's part of those heroes, but even then,
He's still mysterious because he's like Roman, which is not what we're used to either.
yeah, there's that thing as well. And I think that's what I really like kind of about Heroes of Olympus is, again, now that we're having multiple perspectives, we're actually getting multiple perspectives that aren't just one narrative, they're multiple narratives. And I think what Rick Riordan does really well in these series is he really, really does explore the idea of race. He just explores it, especially through the eyes of kids. Like, what does that mean to people? Like, is it their identity? Is it their culture? Is it just who they are? And I've always found that so compelling about Rick Riordan's work. And I think it's almost like exemplified here with Leo. Like he isn't like a stereotype.
Right, exactly. It's both important to the story that his family is Latinx, I guess, but it's like not his entire character. It's both. I mean, same thing with Piper too. Like she is both Cherokee and she also has a lot of other stuff going on. Believe me, a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah, and that's like who they are. It isn't like they're like a walking stereotype of like stereotypes, which I like that so much. Like they're actually people that have problems and issues that relate to who they are. And, you know, being Cherokee, being indigenous, being Latinx, like that is just a part of who they are. And I think Rick Riordan does a really good job with that.
Yeah. So it's like a really, I don't know, these two chapters are pretty good because I think you really delve into the complicated like psyche of Leo, how he's somehow both this like goofy, like lighthearted, comedic relief, but then behind it all is like some really heavy stuff.
Yeah, and especially again, Rick Riordan's obviously like a mystery writer in the sense of like when he goes to the bunker, there are like weird scribbles and blueprints, and even back in the 1860s, this great prophecy was happening because they were building this ship, and it said something about the prophecy.
Right. So there was already like literally the writing on the wall that something was going to happen. Like even like something that Leo was having visions of and drawing as a child was something that they were thinking about in 1864. So like, what does that mean? Like that his existence has been foretold forever. And I guess that's what Hera was trying to tell him when he was a child. You know, he's like, oh, are you going to be my little hero is what she was saying to him, you know, whenever she put him in the fireplace or made him stand in the middle of a field next to a snake, you know?
And then there's the part that I absolutely love, which is when Nico gets blasted by fire. It's like, oh my God, I'm not dead. Oh, thank God my clothes are still on me. Whew, that'd been bad. Like, I spent a good couple seconds laughing about that because there's that thought process of Rick Riordan, like, well, if he has fire powers, his clothes might burn off. And I thought that was hilarious.
No, and then his clothes, I thought that was pretty funny that his clothes don't burn for some reason.
Same as with, I guess it also makes sense because when we have Percy Jackson's perspective, like his clothes are always dry.
Oh, when he jumps in the water and he stays dry. Yeah, exactly. So there's like some sort of like protective layer on him, on his body that keeps him from burning for whatever reason.
Oh my God, Leah's made out of tin foil.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Don't put him in the microwave.
Oh no! I always think of those videos where people put dumb things in the microwave just explodes.
Oh yeah, have you ever seen the YouTube channel Is It a Good Idea to Microwave This? I don't think they make videos anymore, but that was a real fun time in the early aughts when they would just put a bunch of stuff in the microwave.
There was that one, or Will It Blend?
Will It Blend? Yeah, they were very connected in that way.
See, my favorite ones are watching things like being crushed to death by like hydraulic press. Those are great, like bags of chips, aluminum. Yeah, great.
If they had hydraulic press in Percy Jackson, I think they'd be very well served. They'd just be like, just take the monster, put it in the press. It has to be made out of celestial bronze, though.
Hydraulic press. Hephaestus is a gigantic hydraulic press.
I guess that's true, yeah.
Oh no. It's going to be about to say the forbidden hydraulic press. So, B, are you excited to read the next couple chapters? Because the next one is a Jason chapter.
It's a Jason chapter. Yeah, it is, because it was Piper then. Yeah, so the next one's a Jason chapter. We really left off on... I mean, literally every chapter is like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? Because, like, things are really heating up. Like, we know they're going to go on this quest. No pun
intended, right?
We know... Honestly, yeah, Leo is using his fire powers now. Piper knows what her godly parent is. So does Jason. He's the son of Zeus for some reason, but like I guess technically Juno.
Jupiter.
It's Jupiter. Sorry, I get them confused. Technically Jupiter. Yeah, Jupiter is Zeus. I know.
Just think Juno is Ellen Page.
Juno's Ellen Page, who's like a mom. Yeah, got it. That makes sense.
Exactly. That's how I think about it.
Right. You're a part-time demigod and a full-time friend. Sorry.
Oh man, one of these days I gotta rewatch Juno while watching this.
I recently rewatched it. It really holds up. It's very good.
Oh yeah. That's one of those movies that's like, if we're about to go like a tangent, like I remember seeing that movie. That was like one of the first like real indie movies to really yeah, this will get you.
Weirdly, I don't know if you know about this, but tons of like international people love Juno because it like exemplifies like that really like cool hipster culture from America. Like I knew we had an exchange student from France who was obsessed with that movie, and then when my sister went to college, her roommate was from India and she was also obsessed with Juno and like obsessed with like the Moldy Peaches and all the indie bands featured in that movie. Like it's this very specific paragon of like indie culture in America that everyone wanted to be like Juno, which is ironic because Ellen Page is Canadian.
Yep. And also, like, when I look at it as well, is like, it's either that movie or I love, was it Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I heard that book was actually really good.
I never have read it, but I remember that movie so vividly. I've only seen it a couple times, but that movie has some of the highlights. And then...
Michael Cera.
Sophie, do you want to read some listener emails?
I sure do. Let's see here. Yeah, we got a couple emails. First one is... from Max, who says, Dear Zach and B, hello, I'm resending this email because I sent it a few weeks ago, but I don't know if you guys saw it. Hello, my name is Max, and I'm from the land of Hades, but also in the Poseidon cabin. Go figure. I'm 18 years old, but I recently started reading the Percy Jackson books. I watched the movie when it came out, and I thought it was an awesome concept. Recently, notice they said concept and not movie. It's an awesome concept. The execution, not so much.
Did you see the tweet that Rick Riordan put out today about, like, they should have censored the entire movie? They were talking about they censored, I think, the Lotus Casino scene in the Disney Plus version. And he said they should just censor the whole movie with just a gigantic, just blank screen.
Censor the whole movie by having it be a screensaver with the text of the book. Anyway, an awesome concept. Recently, my family and I rewatched, so I decided to give the books a try. Best decision ever. I read through them fairly quickly, and I decided to see if there was a good podcast on the series. Luckily, I found you guys, and I'm currently binging the series to catch up as fast as I can. I'm on the 4th book for the podcast. You two are awesome, and I love your commentary on these amazing books. Since I just started reading, I really enjoyed B's take on the series as I was coming from a similar perspective going in. This is my 2nd ever podcast that I've listened to, and you guys have inspired me to try and start my own podcast. Oh, wow. Wow, you go from listening to 2 podcasts, you're like, I'm going to do it. That's really awesome.
This seems like a trend here, doesn't it? Like, people get inspired by podcasts to make podcasts.
It's true. Yeah. Podcast listeners often become podcast makers. My friend who grew up with the books and I really want to do a podcast on our own. Thank you guys for creating a wonderful show. Staying mortal, Max. Thank you. That's really awesome. You want to start a podcast. It's amazingly accessible to start a podcast, and it's very rewarding because we get emails from people like you that are very kind.
See, my advice when I get to like making podcasts, like as a person that I get paid to kind of talk about this slightly a little bit, is that have fun with it. You don't need the best equipment. You don't even need like super duper like insane equipment when it comes to like, I need to spend like $800 on a microphone. No, you don't. You can get like a Snowball, get a Blue Yeti, get whatever you need. It's all trial and error. There's a lot of great resources. Like I recommend if you have a question like how to make my podcast sound good, YouTube is your best friend when it comes to that stuff because I've learned most of my stuff through there. And also, just enjoy the little things about that. It should be what makes you happy rather than...
it's pretty fun. Everyone was joking when we went into quarantine that like all of the podcast mics were sold out because people wanted to make podcasts. But you know what? I want people to make podcasts. It's awesome. It's really fun. I'm really glad that I decided to do it.
It's one of those like how we even do our show. It's through trial and error. Like I learned from a really good person when it came to podcasting about like how to make podcasts sound good, how to like record your thing separately. Don't do Skype, like that type of stuff. And now there's so many resources to like make a podcast. You'd be shocked how many resources like there's like Zencaster and a bunch of other programs that you can use if you want to do like long distance or with friends. Just have fun with it and you'll go so far.
Yeah, which is great timing considering everyone is still like quarantining and trying to keep their distance and everything. Well, with podcasting you can do it remotely. We've always done it remotely. I've met Zach only twice in person.
Eventually we'll do 3 times. After the 4th time, do I get like a free latte or something, like a punch card?
Yeah, this week for Zach's birthday, I was going to be in LA, but things change.
Things change.
Another time.
Yep. Yeah, we'll figure something out, B. Once that happens, we'll either go to Disneyland or you know what? I'll take it to my house so we could be like, look, this is where Piper got grossed out by meat.
Yep, it's true. This is the disgusting slaughterhouse. What a fun tour.
But thank you so much for that amazing email. So we got one from David that says, "Hello, I'm David and I am a boy and about to turn 13. I really like this podcast. I was the person who wrote the Aragon review, and I'm sorry if it seemed harsh even though I gave you guys 4 stars. I cried for hours after finishing the Aragon series and I was really emotional about it. LOL. Sorry, I do really like this podcast and I hope you guys keep doing what you're doing for a long while. P.S. Hope this isn't a long email." No, you're fine, David. And thank you so much, David, for that lovely, lovely email. We really appreciate it. And what I'll say about that when it comes to like the 4-star review is that we like things, you like things, and we never want to take that experience of like you being able to be emotional about a book. We'll never take that experience away from you just because we have a different opinion on something. Like, we want you to have that emotional experience. If you like Aragon, if you like Twilight, if you like whatever you like, it should be what you like. You can listen to us talk about it. Like, there's a lot of things that I try to get my friends to like watch and stuff, and they'll not like it. And it's one of those things that I feel like, what's the best way to put this? Be like, maybe not, don't take it personally. Like, we love that you have that experience of being able to, have that emotional connection with Aragon. Those books came out when I was a kid, and I never really got into them, and then some stuff happened, and it's one of those things where I just got kind of disillusioned by Aragon. But that means that you shouldn't be disillusioned by Aragon. If it's your favorite series, read it away. Read away, boy. Read away.
I mean, there's like a lot of YA that like isn't for everybody. So, we might not be fans, but we're glad that you are. And thank you for continuing to listen. We're sorry if you felt like it was a little harsh. We didn't want to shoot you down or anything.
No. And I think I even said in that's like, I wanted my friend to really like the movie, like Knives Out, and he said it was bad. Like,
it just happens.
It just happens. It's apples and oranges. Like, I'm also like, I'm an optimist when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Like, I want every movie I watch to be really good. You know what the last movie I saw last year was? Cats.
Wait, was it Cats?
It was Cats.
Yeah, it was Cats. I was gonna guess.
You know what I said about Cats, B?
Oh, what did you say about Cats?
I said, at least if I hit rock bottom next year, it'll be so great.
Oh, no.
I think I have this recorded, too.
The only thing worse than Cats is a pandemic.
Oh, man. It's pandemonium a little bit.
Oh, geez. Anyway, but like Cats is almost so bad it's good, though. It like cycles back around.
B, you're telling me this year might actually be a catastrophe?
No.
Yes.
No, Zach, no. We all want to go to the heavy side layer. We're done.
I'm about to go on the hot air balloon, B.
I'm gonna sing Memory and yeet myself out of this plane.
Memories all alone. I can't do it because we'll probably get like a copyright strike. But like this.
Oh my god, you're gonna sound like Miranda Cosgrove in School of Rock.
Oh my god. Megan.
Oh, I love how that joke is now relevant again.
So B, you ready for another email?
Hey Zach and B, I'm Kira. I'm 14, I'm a daughter of Athena, and I live in Israel. Sorry in advance because this is going to be longish, but I would really appreciate it if you read it on air and it would make my week. I've discovered your podcast in quarantine and am now up to date by listening to every day while doing schoolwork. Wow. Just for fun, or now that we are slowly going back to school in between periods, or on the way to and from school. Okay, so basically I listen to you guys a lot. You guys are the best, and your references and chapter names are hilariously amazing. I also understand most of your references because my parents made us have a quarantine throwback movie marathon, so I watched The Matrix and many more. Oh, wow. I have a few questions for you guys that I hope you can answer. What do you think will make or break the new show? Who is your favorite character from the 3 new ones? Thank you so much, and keep staying mortal. Wow, what a nice email. Also, it's amazing that you get our references as a 14-year-old. That's very commendable.
I think the most exciting part of the email is we have listeners in Israel. That's amazing to be.
I mean, we have listeners all over the place. That's really crazy. Yeah, I can't even imagine. We have listeners from tons of places who we've never been there. I've never been to the Middle East. I've never been to there's tons of people who listeners in Australia. I can't even believe it.
I technically have the ability to get on a free plane trip to Israel. Not right now, obviously.
Would you want to though?
Yeah, I'd go.
Maybe not right now.
I said,
is all I'm
obviously not
saying.
right now, B.
Yeah, maybe not the best timing.
Yeah. So if you're Jewish, you can actually go to Israel. There's this thing called Birthright. Don't do it currently right now because I don't know if they're offering it.
Yeah, don't travel anywhere right now, but maybe later. 2 questions. What do you think make or break the show? I mean, you could listen to our little crossover app, which we can get into more details about what we think about the show. But I think what will mostly make or break the show is whether or not it stays true to like the spirit of the books. I'm like not 100% concerned with them getting like every single detail exactly the same as the books, because that doesn't always translate well to TV. But I want the casting to be like well considered, for them not to be too old and like unbelievable as teens. And I want the characters to like feel like the characters I read. I don't want them to feel out of character or like they're not really getting to like the emotional heart of the story. That's kind of my opinion. Oh, and of course representation, which we talked about. Those are kind of the main things.
For me, I think the thing that might make or break the show for me is the tone of it, because when it comes to Disney stuff, this is more inherent and like because of Marvel, and they later tried to do it with like Star Wars stuff where like they don't take anything seriously what I mean by that is like usually like they'll do like action beat, and then have like 4 jokes. And that's kind of like it messes things up. Like I want it to be both, like Percy Jackson is both serious and funny at the exact same time, but I don't want them to focus on the funny part because I want them to also focus on the serious part as much as possible.
We don't want it to be like a real like goofy Disney movie that's very well, not like the Goofy movie though, because that's actually emotional and good. But I mean like a silly Disney movie. We want a little bit more heart to it, I guess. Not the movies. Basically, look at the movies and don't do that.
Like the example that I don't want to have is like what they did in The Last Jedi. Like I even showed you the scene when I was at your house, the Yo Mama joke in the beginning of the movie where they're doing like, your mother's waiting for you, and it's like really jarring, and then the rest of the movie's super depressing. Like stuff like that. Like I want it to have a nice tone to it. But thank you so much. We actually have a continuation to that one, B, for Kira. We actually got another one. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Hey, Zach and B, it's Kira again. I'm 14 years old, daughter of Athena from Israel. In case you forgot or read this before, my first email.
We just read
it. Sorry for this longish email. I love the fact that you get the satisfaction from the fact that you make people happy. Even though you guys are so funny that I once laughed so much from your podcast that I woke my sister and my mom and thought I was having an asthma attack. I was okay, but I was laughing so much that I couldn't breathe. Oh no. Okay, B, have you ever laughed so hard where like you've almost passed out?
I've gotten close, yeah. Actually, just yesterday I was laughing really, really hard and like almost lost my breath because that was like the first time I'd seen my friends in a long time. Social distantly, of course, just to soothe anybody's concerns.
Obviously, Kira, like both of us have had that experience before. You're not alone. Like there was one time I was playing Jackbox and I laughed so hard that I actually passed out. My friends thought I was dead because I blacked out for a couple of seconds. That's how well I was laughing.
Wow, that's so relatable.
So to continue, you guys made me feel so much better today when I like kind of failed my math class and was on the way of having a mental breakdown. So instead, I plugged my headphones in and just listened to you guys until I calmed down, which is thanks to your podcast. Helped me calm down earlier than usual. Thank you for being such great nerds because it helps me with being a nerd with peer pressure from middle school. So all in all, thank you guys so much. You've helped me out so much through my anxiety and minor depression. And thank you for being so amazing and funny and just putting a smile on my face no matter what kind of day I've been having. Keep staying mortal and keep horsing around. Bye, guys. That's such a very sweet email.
Yeah, that's very... I mean, we've actually gotten a couple emails like that. And every time I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe you listen to us to sort of soothe any kind of anxiety or worry in this world. And I know right now it kind of feels like the world is a disaster, so I understand not feeling so great. But I'm glad that our show can provide a tiny little bit of escapism amongst all of this.
That's kind of the goal, I guess, with our show. Like, as like everything around us is on fire and people can't go outside and we're locked in our radio studio. If we look at like The Last Olympian, we need to kind of like have like the Pandora's jar moment here. Where like there's bad things in the world, but sometimes we have to focus on the little things. Even if hope is so small, we have to try to preserve it in that way. And I like that we can give people that type of comfort of being able to laugh and be able to, laugh so hard that you almost, your parents think you're about to die. Like, that's kind of like, you have those seconds where you're laughing so hard that you have that experience, and that's such a great thing. I'm actually curious, what joke made you laugh so hard that everyone was afraid for your well-being? Yeah, just email us and tell us, because I'm actually kind of curious now, because oh man, just imagine someone actually like passing out from our show. We're not held responsible if you do pass out. If you're listening to our show and you have that problem, please do not operate any motor vehicles or fly or do anything that requires medical assistance. Please don't.
Yeah, just be careful out there.
I've actually almost crashed my car because I was listening to a podcast where they said something so outrageous that I laughed so hard that I actually swerved to the next lane. That's happened before. B, you ready to read another email?
So, we got another email from Jeannie who says, Dear Zach and B, as a longtime lurker of your podcast, I feel like this email has been very much overdue. I'm a senior in college, class of 2020, yeet, and I therefore probably one of your older listeners. I just wanted to email you both and let you know the impact your podcast has had on me. Last spring, I got a concussion from a Taekwondo tournament. Well, you're cooler than I am. And was sentenced to a month of rest with no screens or anything requiring intense concentration. I felt very isolated socially and restless to death during this time, but the good thing to come out of this was I first discovered podcasts, and more specifically your guys' podcast. As a result, I would listen to you guys talk about my favorite childhood series, and not only relive the memories, but also feel like I was just listening to some friends chatting, which really helped with making me feel less lonely. Having listened to your show, I really don't think any other book club style of podcast will do it for me, not just because Percy Jackson was a special series to me, but your guys' friendship is so endearing and special too. Aw.
I'm tear-bending.
I know. I love everything about the show, the format, the rich analysis of the characters from diverse perspectives, the social commentary and contextualizing of the books in real life, and the jokes you guys make that often go over my head but are hilarious nonetheless. Each of your guys' role as a host is very valuable to the show and making it come to life for your listeners. I'm really happy that you both enjoy recording and hopefully don't feel pressured to make content for us. Please know that I, probably many of your listeners, would rather you take vacations every once in a while as you need than quitting making the show completely. Now that I've written this, I feel like there was more I wanted to say, but this email is probably long enough as it is. Too long, didn't read. I love you guys both and keep doing you. Love, Jeannie. P.S. While I was concussed, I tried to pick up sewing and make sock puppets of your guys' pets for you, but I got busy, and also B might not have their hedgehog anymore. Anyway, I'm still working on something, but knowing me, who knows when it'll be done. Oops, shrug emoji. Wow, what an adorably sweet email. Thank you, Jeannie. We're so endearing and special.
That is such a great email. Oh, like, everything about that is amazing. You know what I would love, B? I would love a sock puppet of myself.
Yes, I think we've discussed this many times. Yeah, I don't have that hedgehog anymore. Last I checked, he's still alive. He just is not with me anymore. I left him with my ex, and he's living his hedgehog life somewhere else right now, and I'm sure he's fine, but I don't know if I'd be able to feel comfortable having a sock puppet of him. I don't know. It's just, we've moved past that. But if you made a sock puppet of, say, one of my boyfriend's cats, that would be just as good.
That does work as well. Yeah, no, it's great when we get emails like this. Like, I love this type of stuff because we have this connection. And to answer your question, I don't think neither of us feel pressure to make more episodes. I think it's more like we want to deliver our content in a very efficient, effective way. And that's kind of like one of the things. Like, we actually surprisingly don't get emails about making more episodes. We get episodes like, wow, you guys talk so much about random things like sandwiches and stuff.
Yeah, no, this is like truly the best type of testimonial we could get, because that's exactly the type of show we're trying to make. I hope that that's what we're doing for other people. We're trying to be goofy and funny, but also analyze these books. And it's a juggling act, to say the least, of trying to, be thoughtful, be educational, sort of, be entertaining, and be silly. But we hope we strike that balance for you guys. And I really appreciate emails like this. It's very sweet and touching. And of course, a big part of this is my friendship with Zach.
Oh my gosh. Actually, you know what, B? You know what today is when we're recording this is? It's National Friendship Day.
Oh, that's so sweet. Aww.
I think it's National Best Friend Day, B. You're like one of my best friends, so happy National Best Friend Day.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice. Yeah, you're my friend. And then yesterday, I saw my other best friends, Sarah and Stacy, for the first time in a while, especially Stacy. I haven't seen her in a very long time. We sat on picnic blankets at a distance, eating potato salad, and it was a good time.
B, because it's National Best Friend Day, I'll give you this, is that if I'm dangling off a cliff, it's between me and Sarah. You can let me go. You can let Sarah live.
I hope that doesn't happen. I wouldn't want to make that decision, and I don't think I would make that choice. I'd be like, it'd be like the trolley problem. I wouldn't be able to make the decision.
It's okay, but you can let me go. The accident wasn't your fault.
I feel like you've made this joke before, joking about rolling down my extremely steep driveway.
I've never had a joke about your extremely deep driveway. Like, I'm...
Remember when you were getting my car and you were just like, I might roll down the hill, but you know, if Sam also rolls down the hill and you have to choose, then you can choose Sam. And I was like, why are you always sacrificing yourself in these scenarios?
Because I've lived a good life.
Oh my God.
But happy National Best Friend. Everybody, text your best friend right now. Tell them how much you appreciate them in your life.
Hey, hello.
If it's your dog, give them treats and back rubs, please.
And you know what? We're your friend too, and I'm glad that you guys feel like you're just listening to friends talk, because all of our listeners, you guys are friends to us.
Thank you so much for that. That's actually really amazing, man. It's really touching when we get this stuff. I'm about to like cry.
Oh yeah, oof. Tensions are high. We're all a little bit in our feels right now.
So I have an email. This is from Megan. Hey Zach and B, it's Megan again. Although I don't know if you remember me. I emailed you way back when you were still on the second book, asking about what your favorite mythology was. I remember this email because I talked about Valhalla. I fell behind listening a long while ago, but I am now catching up. I honestly didn't realize how much I missed listening to both you talk every week till I started listening again, and I'm so glad that I did. I wanted to ask what scene you are most excited about with the new adaptation with the live-action series. I also included a little sign that I made as I was catching up lately. Keep staying mortal. Aw.
Oh, that's so cute. I like your lettering there. That's adorable. Keep staying mortal. I feel like we should have a shirt that says that. Maybe we should design something.
Yeah, that's something that we're probably working on.
Yeah, some fun new merch ideas in the works.
What scene are you most looking forward to see, B, in the show?
In the show? I feel like we talked about this on the roundtable episode, but it's honestly hard to say because I'm just like excited for the whole thing. But I guess if I'm going to zero in on the Lightning Thief right away, because that'll be season 1. I don't know. I'm interested to see how the special effects work. Like if that really like sells it, because I think that'll be important. Like the scene of like Ares on the beach with the gun, or like the scene of them at Auntie M's Garden Emporium, like all that kind of stuff where it's like blending the real world with like the magical world, and like how that set dressing is going to look like. I wonder what the tone of the show is going to be like. I'm interested to see how they execute that.
Yeah, like for me, the thing that I'm looking most forward to is almost the road trip aesthetic they're gonna have, because they're gonna go to so many of the best places in the United States. I'm actually really interested. Like for me, I love the aesthetic of Medusa. I pray they do something that's very similar to like the Ray Harryhausen Medusa. I would love it if it almost looks like it was stop animation. That's just my personal preference for stuff. But I think it's going to be the road trip aspect is what I'm most looking forward to. B, I think we're actually out of Iris messages this week. The water's going down. Oh no more rainbows. No, get the squirt bottle, B. No, it's broken. Darn it.
Did I tell you that I saw like a couple weeks ago a rainbow over the lake? It was really beautiful. I should have done an Iris message and called you.
Or you should have looked for the pot of gold, B.
Yeah, very fitting considering I'm the leprechaun.
It's all making sense now.
Yep. That's why I'm so good at basketball. Hint: I'm not good at basketball.
I forgot for a second there. I forgot what you were talking about until I realized
Luck of the Irish, the classic Disney Channel original movie.
Really? I thought it was supposed to be like Cool Runnings. I love that movie. Cowbells.
That's not a Disney Channel movie though, is it? Is that John Hughes?
Yeah, it was. I think it was. It was Cool Runnings.
I know that John Candy's in it, and that it feels like a John Hughes movie.
But it was always on Disney Channel. So it was pretty much a Disney Channel original movie.
That's true. Oh, so maybe Disney owns it. So I guess it's technically a Disney movie. Disney owns everything, though, now.
Cadet Kelly is another one. That's a Disney Channel original movie.
Oh, my God. I don't think I ever watched that because I had zero interest in the military as a child and now.
I recommend that movie. It's actually real good. Everyone in it's amazing.
I mean, I liked Hilary Duff as a kid, but, who didn't? I was obsessed with Lizzie McGuire. Made my dad take me to the Lizzie McGuire movie. We've talked about
this. Yeah, we have.
Sorry, Dad.
Unfortunately, we didn't get any iTunes reviews for this week. That's okay. There's always next week. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to our show. We really appreciate it. You guys are the absolute best listeners that we could possibly have. So, B, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at bkellygorman and on Tumblr at twinpoetry.tumblr.com.
If you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at Suda41, that's SUDA41. If you want to email the show, you can email us at radiocamphaplet@gmail.com. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/radiocamphaplet. We also have t-shirts available at TeePublic, so go to www.tpublic.com. We'd really appreciate that. You can get a sticker with our faces on it. We're working on getting new t-shirts. We'll see how that goes. Well, I'm Zach.
I'm B.
Let's keep staying mortal, everybody. See ya!
Bye, guys.
Zoinks!